What's up, YouTube? This is the Roman Atheist, Romanus Atheist, and we're going into a PragerU video. Yay! Good way to start. This is about how you should read the Bible to your kids, even if you're secular, because it teaches you something or whatever. I'll let him talk about it, but I'll interject whenever he says something wrong, which will probably be quite often. Be ready for a 25-minute video. I don't know how long this will take.
There's a book you can read to your children that will make your job as a parent a lot easier.
Alright, so when the first two words first sentence of everything you say is already false, without even saying that it's the Bible, there is not a single book that can actively make kids better or worse. It's more a parenting style, and you telling a kid to read a book, especially the Bible, isn't going to make a kid better or worse.
This book will teach them lessons in character, how to distinguish right from wrong, about gratitude, respect, and perseverance.
Alright, so like I said, they're talking about the Bible, but when they say teach you right and wrong, that is callous at the very least, or at least you have an unwavering faith in a book which you really shouldn't, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But the amount of terrible things that have been done in the Bible by what is supposed to be the good guys is insane. Like, the amount of genocides that are written about in the Bible are insane. Like the Philistines, when they first conquer the Holy Land, is insane. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have the exact quote, but I'll look for it, and if I can, I'll put it on screen.
And that's in the opening chapters. Parents have been reading this book to their children for a very long time. It's one reason it's a perpetual bestseller.
Is that an Adpopulum? I feel like it's an Adpopulum, because him saying that it's good because lots of people have read it and lots of people have bought it, I'm pretty sure that's an Adpopulum. So I'm gonna say it is. If it's not, well, you guys can correct me in the comments or whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, just the number of people who have read it and say it's good and that it's a bestseller doesn't make it a good book. Like, is 50 Shades of Grey a good book? 'Cause a lot of people have read it, and it was turned into a movie, and a lot of people have watched it. So I guess we should teach our children 50 Shades of Grey. 'Cause that would make sense. At least it gives some semblance of sex education.
This book, of course, is the Bible. And you don't have to be religious to read it, and your children don't have to be religious to enjoy it and get a whole lot out of it.
Alright, so first, you should never read the Bible to a child, because that is how you indoctrinate them, which is why he's bringing this up. He's really supporting his own system. I don't even know how to phrase this, but don't read the Bible to a child. That is a form of indoctrination. Nothing good will come of it, because let children decide what they want to believe when they want to believe it. If they want to be a Christian, if you're a secular parent or an atheist parent, don't teach your kids anything about religion. If they want to go and learn it themselves once they're older, let them. It'd be hypocritical to not. But what I'm saying is the only good stuff you can get out of the Bible is how backward society was, and the occasional, treat people well. That's like the only good stuff from the Bible, and it doesn't even do that correctly.
Decency, kindness, charity, selflessness, and sacrifice, they're all right there. Consider the story of David and Goliath. 9 feet tall, clad in armor, Goliath is the most fearsome warrior of his day. How could he not be? He's 9 feet tall, for goodness sake. Who wants to go against a giant like that? No Israelite, that's for sure. Except for one, a skinny shepherd boy named David. This boy has 3 things going for him: courage, a slingshot, and faith that God is with him.
Okay, so first of all, he has yet to demonstrate that this is good for secular kids in any way. He hasn't even really shown that it's good for religious kids either. I mean, he's going to continue the story, and I'll let him do so. But first of all, I don't even think the Bible mentions how tall Goliath is, other than that he's a giant, which could be at any measure. But when David does win this fight, if you like the way the Bible phrases the rest of the war and the battle and stuff, like the Goliath's people are massacred after this. So I don't know if that's necessarily something you want to be promoting to children.
As he strides out onto the battlefield to face Goliath in single combat, he holds the future of the Israelite nation, not to mention his own life, in his hands.
Well, here's a fun one. Goliath, as he stands at the battlefield, is holding the nation of Philistines in his hand, as well as his own life. What makes David and the Israelites' lives any better than the Philistines? So again, the Bible likes to pick and choose what's good or bad, because these two people, I guess, are in the same boat, other than one supposedly has God's power on his side. So really, I think God is the bully in this situation, because he's going to talk about how Goliath's the bully, I'm pretty sure. And if he doesn't, I'll be surprised. But if anything, God is the one who's picking and choosing who lives or dies in this situation. And that's not exactly a good thing either.
Wrapped up in all of this tension and drama are valuable lessons that any child can profit from. David refuses to be intimidated by a bully.
Okay, how is Goliath a bully? I mean, they don't really flesh out his character. I mean, he's a warrior, but does that make everyone in the military bullies? That's kind of a catch-22 for you there, Mr. Well, I don't know if you're conservative, but I'm guessing you are because you're on Prager University. If I asked you what are your thoughts on soldiers in the U.S. military, and if you think they're bullies, they even don't face their enemies; they just shoot them from afar, from like a drone or something. Is that could be considered even worse than this? I'm not arguing that they are bullies. What I'm pointing out is this not even, I guess it's really a metaphor. This supposed historical context in saying that Goliath is a bully is kind of a poor way of representing what you're trying to in this situation.
He's willing to act, to show resolve, even in the face of his own self-doubt. His actions paint a portrait of true heroism in the face of true danger. Isn't that the kind of strength we want our children to emulate?
Well, I think the kind of strength that we should want children to emulate is less believing in some crazy, or not some crazy God, I guess, just some God. And then when it gets through getting rewarded for that, what should be rewarded is an intelligent understanding of your situation and then finding ways to get out of it and being successful. That would be, if the Bible talked about that, or if you were arguing for that, you'd have some kind of basis, but you're not. You're talking about faith, and how faith in God is what moved him forward to beat a bully who really isn't a bully, but you think he is because he was trying to stop the Israelites, because you think the Israelites were better than the Philistines, without any non-biased historical context between the Philistines uh, and the Israelites.
To be able to defend themselves and later their families and their country.
Alright, I think you know what I'm gonna say here, but what about the Philistine families and Philistine countries? What makes them any better other than you see them as the heroes of the Bible? But why are they the heroes? And what makes them any better? And you can't say God, because that's not an argument. That's saying God likes these people, and that's why they won. And when I ask why, you're responding because God likes them is not a good reason. That's not how it works, and that's basically what, if he was going to make a response video to me, which he wouldn't, because I have like 16 subscribers and this is like a 3 million and it's PragerU. But what they're doing isn't That's not how it's supposed to work. And we're already 10 minutes in. Oh man.
Or how about the story of the brothers, Cain and Abel? Abel, the shepherd, looks at his lot and he's filled with gratitude for his blessings. He offers as a gift to God the very best of his flock. Cain, the farmer, is selfish, unsatisfied with what he has, and he offers only a paltry gift of grain. When God favors Abel's present, Cain allows jealousy to overwhelm him. God speaks to Cain and tells him, I know you're feeling angry, but you can overcome those feelings and master them.
Okay, so Cain's mad because Abel is favored by God because God received some sheep and he only gave him grain, but Abel makes grain and no, Abel has sheep and Cain has grain. So wouldn't it make sense if Cain gives a part of his... Okay, why does God favor Abel? I don't understand this. This story makes no sense. Okay, oh, jealousy is bad, but God's all-knowing and knows what's going to happen, so why is he gonna favor... Why does he favor anyone? Doesn't that get in the way of free will? That's an own tangent. I don't understand any of this. To be honest, it's not a... The story makes no sense for what they're trying to argue other than jealousy. They're gonna go... Cain kills Abel at some point, and God questions why, and that's where they're going with this. But other than, oh, don't kill and don't be jealous, what else are you trying to get from this story?
Cain doesn't listen, doesn't control his jealousy, and kills Abel. When God asks Cain, where is Abel, your brother? Cain lies and says, I do not know. And then, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, should have been Cain's answer to his own question. We are responsible for ourselves, and we have an obligation to others. We all have emotions and passions, but God has given us the tools to master those emotions. And master them we must if we are to live a productive and ethical life.
Alright, so far, what have you brought forward that makes the Bible a better book to have to read to your kids, and why you should, and makes your parenting less worthy? Because you bring a story with David, and David and Goliath and bullies and all that, but you can get that from another book, and probably one with less nuance / less problems and less genocide as a result of the story. And then with Cain and Abel, the jealousy resulting from Cain is a direct result from the favoring that God gave Abel. So why... How is this not God's fault, I guess? Like, yes, there's supposed free will in the Bible, and Cain acted on this by giving favor. And Cain murdered Abel because God gave Abel more favor because he sacrificed sheep, and Cain sacrificed grain, but Cain farms grain and that's his job, and Abel farms sheep and that's his job, so they both gave up what they earn on their own. Wouldn't God prefer, like, from both of them, like, let's say, a cow as sacrifice, because then they're giving up something they had to spend to get, which means it's even more worth more to both of them, because it wasn't their job to, like, collect it. When, like, what God is asking for makes little to no sense in the situation, and the favorability is even stranger. This doesn't seem like something that's good, and that the Bible shouldn't have this thing that you use to indoctrinate children, because it doesn't give any good life value like they're claiming it does.
Most important of all, life is a gift from God. We have no right to take it away from the innocent. Murder is evil. All these lessons are contained in this one story.
Okay, so now he has brought up evil. Murder is wrong. It is damaging to society, and it's to a successful society. And we have really no way of the reason we know or understand that murder is wrong in our society is if it was okay to murder, that would damage our own society, and that is something the average human can understand without a book. And life is sacred because of God, that's just a bunch of bullcrap. I can't say it any other way, it just is. But let's let him continue and finish his bit.
The stories of David and Goliath and Cain and Abel are only two examples of the many invaluable lessons the Bible offers to children. Think of a lesson, and there's a Bible story to teach it.
Oh, I have one. Slavery. Slavery is wrong. Everyone should agree with that. I hope you guys do, because otherwise you have some bigger problems. But there's an entire chapter in the Bible of not Leviticus, Exodus, and in Exodus it talks about all the rules of having slaves. If they're Hebrew, if they're not. If they're Hebrew, you can let them go in 7 years. Oh, whoop-de-doo, 7 years of pain and punishment. But if they're not Hebrew, if they're a Gentile, then you can own them forever. So, here's a new question. Here's a fun question. If the Bible is just and should be taught to children, why is there this entire thing on slavery that the Bible says is okay, but we as a society, as very, in the grand scheme of things, very recently, has determined to not be? I mean, past my lifetime, past like 4 generations, not quite 3 generations, we had deemed it to be wrong, but in the grand scheme of things, slavery has been okay, and you'll argue, oh, it's not, it's better than the slavery we had in the US. That doesn't make it good, and I'm not, there are problems in this book because that is there.
About family dynamics, friendship, forgiveness, leadership, humility, about what is important and what is not. The Bible also teaches children more effectively than any book ever.
Source. We need a source on that. That's really hard. I don't know. Dr. Seuss has taught me a lot more things than the Bible did, or at least a lot more good things than the Bible did. What he might be getting at is it has indoctrinated more children, but that is not a good thing and certainly isn't teaching.
That they are not the center of the universe. They're accountable to their parents and to God. Children who internalize this lesson are much more likely to be kinder and more mindful of how they behave than those who do not. The Bible discourages narcissism.
How? The main hero in the Bible says he's the son of God, says that he can do anything, does some impressive things, but then dies because like, alright, I'm gonna rephrase that because the story of Jesus isn't the most narcissistic thing, but he wanted an entire religion based off of him, so that's a little narcissistic, well, quite a bit narcissistic, but the story that his followers written down about him isn't super narcissistic. But God, on the other hand, that is like the supreme level of narcissism. Oh, I want all of my creation to bow down and love me, and if they don't, I will torture them forever. How is that not narcissistic? I think that is more narcissistic than the story that word came from. Like, that's insane. What is that story? Oh, he couldn't find anyone he loved until he looked in a puddle and he saw himself and fell in love and sat there until he died. That's narcissistic, but that is not nearly as narcissistic as the God that you believe in.
Of course, the Bible is not merely a children's book. It's a library of wisdom for everyone. Here's how Abraham Lincoln, who was not a churchgoer, but who was steeped in the Bible, described it. In regard to this great book, it is the best gift God has given to man. But for it, we could not know right from wrong. and all things most desirable for man's welfare are to be found portrayed in it. As Lincoln suggests, the Bible is the moral foundation on which Western civilization is built and a point of shared reference.
Is it though? As I pointed out, the most famous thing that Abraham Lincoln did is pretty much diametrically opposed to the Bible's position on that same thing. So, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that's kind of a great man believed in the Bible, so we should also believe in the Bible and think that the Bible tells us right from wrong, which really it doesn't. Just because a great man said that this is a good thing doesn't make it actually a good thing.
Up until the 1960s, you could cite a Bible story and most people knew exactly what you were talking about. Everyone from Shakespeare to Dickens to Franklin Roosevelt made great use of Bible stories to communicate their themes. We're losing that connection, and that is a terrible shame and a profound cultural loss.
So, I think that this is actually a good thing that the Bible isn't becoming as pronounced in our culture, because the most backward civilizations in modern history are all very religious outside of North Korea, which that is a false dichotomy. Is that the right word? It's not necessarily, that's causation, correlation does not equal causation is what I'm trying to say. So the stuff that he's saying here, that applies to that, but also what I said there where most of the developing world is still very religious, but what we consider the developed world is not religious, other than the United States. And I would actually argue that Bible stories are just as well known now as they were in the time of maybe not in the time of Shakespeare, because you're forced to know all that. Actually, in the time of Shakespeare, never mind, that's a little false. But with FDR, I think the Bible verses are just as well known, or at least, or maybe even more well known, because back in that time, at least Catholics, which he wasn't a Catholic, was all in Latin, so that part of it, and that's a large base, wouldn't know all of the Bible stories. So basically what I'm getting at is, as time has gone on, we've actually we've lost the religious elements while still keeping the great part of our culture.
If you don't have some biblical literacy, you can't fully appreciate the powerful words of Martin Luther King, for example. Only if you know the story of Moses can you fully appreciate King's poetic vision of having seen the promised land. Of the Bible, Yale theologian George Lindbeck famously said, "There was a time when every educated person, no matter how professedly unbelieving or secular, knew the actual text from Genesis to Revelation." Our goal should be to get back to that kind of biblical literacy. And it starts with our children.
If your goal is that kind of biblical literacy, I think seculars have most Christians beat in that regard. Because almost every single atheist I know has read the Bible more than once. I've read it 3 times, and I'm actually on the lower end for that spectrum. Most atheist YouTube or all of the atheist YouTube I know of has read it as religious, as irreligious, or more than that. So they have an understanding of the Bible more than the majority of Christians or Catholics I know, which doesn't prove anything, which I understand, but your goal is being fulfilled by seculars more than it is by Christians, is what I'm attempting to say here. I don't know if I'm being very, very eloquent with my language, but I guess what I'm trying to say is religious people don't understand their own book, the way that many secularists do, or that might be, that's going too far, I think. But what I'm trying to say is biblical literacy is not, or lack of biblical literacy is not the problem with our country. We have many problems, but it is not one of them.
Your children. Read them a Bible story tonight. Who knows? You might learn a few things too. I'm Johnny Moore for Prager University.
This video was made possible by a generous grant from Colorado Christian University. Find out more about them at prageru.com/ccu.
Okay, so it took me 26 minutes to get through a 5-minute video of PragerU. So that should show to you that there are at least an insane amount of problems to get with their videos, and I'm actually coming out with a whole bunch of them these next couple weeks because I'm going on some vacations, so I gotta pre-record a bunch of these, but this is my first one and it'll be coming out on Monday. I would also like to apologize for missing my release on Friday and posting that video on Saturday. So we're gonna start the every other day upload from Saturday, so it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday again, and then we'll do Sunday, and we'll continue that loop of every other day. But I apologize for missing that one day. It wasn't my goal. If I miss any more days, it's not my goal. Usually it means editing took too long, or I didn't quite get the video done before like 10 o'clock, because I'd like to post it within hours that people are awake in my region at the very least, because then I can get an understanding of, because if I post it where I am at like 2 o'clock, then either way people are awake in the United States, so, and that's where most of my viewership comes from, where if I post it at like 10, it's midnight in another place, and it's what, like 8 o'clock, which is like when some people are starting to head to bed. So that's why I will possibly skip a day if it takes me too long to get the video up to a point where it will be relatively successful, because most of my videos within like 3 or 4 hours of getting posted get most of their views. Alright, sorry for the long episode this time. Again, sorry for missing the day as well. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm the Roman Atheist,